Ladies and gentlemen, I'm introducing you to Elroy Meegan. We started out as bouncers together in the club Roxy's. Some of you may remember it as a roller skating rink. And Elroy was one of the well-known guys who was actually in the movie Beat Street.
That's right.
And he was in the very beginning of the movie, standing right at the door at Roxy's. So let's talk about your career a little bit, Elroy. I know about you, but I need our fans and our followers to find out about you. So give us a little information about your background and how you started in being in security, being a bouncer.
Well, coming from out of the Bronx, Melrose Houses, there was Africa Bambaataa at the time, and there was Africa Islam, who was his brother, stepbrother in the mighty Zulu Nation. This is like my entire beginning. And they were introduced musically into the events that were being promoted at the Roxy Roller Rink. So my introduction to the Roxy Roller Rink was through them. That's how I initially went into that particular arena, performance arena. And I remember them having parties at the time, and I was slowly introduced to Stephen Haynall, who was the owner at that time, and Michael Belgrave. And I was given a shot to work security just because of the association from BAM, Africa Islam, and that whole music, thing that was taking place in the Roxy Roller Rink. So based on that, I had the opportunity to meet the likes of you. That was actually my first introduction into security, period. That was my first introduction into the world of security and meeting the greats, that were already on the security team there. It was, definitely my beginning. So I was working there. They was giving me part-time daily throughout, and the environment was very mixed, diverse crowd, Monday through Thursdays. Then Fridays and Saturdays with the promotion teams that were giving parties, it became a more lively environment, a lot more aggressive environment, because you had all the boroughs merging down onto the Roxy Roller Rink for all the artists who used to come there and perform at that time. And we had everybody from the likes of Madonna in the early days, New Edition, there was Chaka Khan, and at the time, the promoter, her name was Cool Lady Blue. And Cool Lady Blue was out of the UK, and she was definitely into hip hop. And we had the DJs in there, and the environment became very aggressive over a period of time because of all the people that were coming from around the city, from Harlem, everywhere, from Brooklyn.
Right.
So you had an aggressive environment. Following the Roxy for me, it was I had a little stint at Club Area, which was on Hudson Street down in Soho. After Hudson, I left for the Palladium. I did some work at the Palladium, which was a huge club. And then following that was the legendary Studio 54. And that was the second coming of Studio 54 when it was owned by a gentleman by the name of, if I can quote some names here, Marvin Gold.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I remember him. I remember him well.
Right. That was after Ian Schrager, pardon, after Ian Schrager and Stephen Rebel. Then it became Marvin Gold.
Right. Well, can you talk a little bit about your boxing career, during that time, and what your training was like?
The training was daily runs, daily time spent in the gym. At the time in the gym was a boxer, Davey Moore, who was a contender at that time. You see Mitch Blood Green in and out of there a lot in Morrisania Youth Center. And Mitch Blood Green lived up on Clay Avenue, 175th Street in the Bronx as well. But real good. I never really pursued it fully in the way that I was actually pushed to, because I have to admit I was good with my hands, and
I remember that.
yeah. And between that and my love for the girls was very distracting, and never stayed with it in the way that I should. But it definitely gave me some arsenal when needed and necessary for some of the encounterings in the clubs. Because we did enter a lot of areas where we had a lot of violence. At certain times.
I remember a couple of incidences in the Roxy's, and one of the incidences was a fight had broke out with one of the leaders of African Bambaataa, and you probably remember this. One of the not African Bambaataa, what they call themselves,
Yeah, the
Zulu
Zulu
Nation. And I
Zulus.
remember one of the leaders, it was you, myself, Big Leon Stevenson, which everybody is Elroy's cousin. If some of you in our audience don't remember Leon Stevenson, he was the model for the DAOS CON, and he got a big deal. He would travel the country, um, posing with the doll and stuff. He became very, very popular. He was actually in the movie Beat Street also. And I remember this particular night, one of the guys, one of the head guys of Zulu Nation, I don't remember the gentleman's name, and he came late and he wanted to get in the club and we wouldn't let him in because he didn't have any ID. And he kept trying to get in and you was trying to talk to him. And I walked in front of you and I said, we're not letting this guy in. And I remember he came at me, and I don't know if you remember when I knocked him out. And everybody thought he was dead. You remember that?
I do remember. I'm just trying to remember who it was at the time.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember the reason why I told that story, just to tell people what we had to go through back in those days. And I remember you were the one, Leon had told me, because Leon and I forgot who else was head of security at the time. And they said, well, go ahead in the back, so this way, they won't know who you are when the cops come. He won't pick you up. And I remember you came to the back and you said, Nathan, I think you better get out of here because I think he's dead. You remember that?